G'day, guys. Welcome. What a fuck up, eh? What an absolute disaster. I had this grand plan of completing this countdown before the completion, or even before, the start of the draft, and I failed to do that. In fact, I'm only halfway. And the main draft has been finished. The rookie draft will take place today, and I'm only up to selection number 5 in my countdown. That's a disaster. However, I will continue because it looks stupid. This countdown I've created, and it just suddenly I throw the towel in. And I've only got up to selection number 6. So I'm going to go selection number 5 today. We're going to have a look at that. The best number 5 in the history of the VFL/AFL draft, 1986 through to 2022 now, because we have a new number 5 draft pick that has been selected. I'm not going to talk about him. But he is a newbie. He is a newbie now. All right, so what have we done so far? Okay, just a really, really quick recap. So 10, we have Patrick Dangerfield, 9, Martin Pike, 8, Jimmy Bartell, 7, Joel Selwood, and 6, Jackson Macrae. And reworking that, Pikey goes out to 10, Macrae goes from 6 to 9, Bartell remains in 8, Dangerfield slips down from 10 to 7, and Joel Selwood continues to fall. Could he be the best ever? We're just going to have to wait and see. So let's look at the not-so-notables with selection number 5. As usual, we go right back to the first of the recognised drafts, 1986. Michael Taylor was drafted to Geelong with that selection number 5. 23-year-old from Port Fairy, won the league medal in the Hampton Football League. The Cats got hold of him. Unfortunately, though, he did not play a senior game at the Geelong Football Club. 1987, the same for Michael Quirk from Myrtleford in the Ovens and Murray Football League. Didn't play a game for St Kilda. He was 19 years of age. 1989, Brad Rowe, originally drafted to Brisbane. Played his best football, though, at the Pies. 73 games, 80 goals with Brisbane, Collingwood and Fremantle. He was a bit of a live wire. But unfortunately, he falls into the not-so-notable. 1990, Stuart Devlin. Another number 5 pick that went to the Cats, this time out of Horsham. Did not play a senior game, Stuart Devlin, at Geelong in 2 years. He was just 18 years of age. Ended up going to Norwood in the SANFL under Neil Craig. 1992, Jason Spinks out of South Fremantle went to Sydney with selection number 5. Lasted just 2 weeks in Sydney. Not a long time. Didn't like it there. Returned to Western Australia. Ended up being picked up by the Eagles in 1995, but failed to play a game at the West Coast Eagles because of injury. He was a cousin of Brett Spinks, who played for the Eagles and then Geelong. 1995, Brendan Crummell from WA, drafted by Hawthorn with selection number 5. He'd had a stint with the West Coast Eagles and Freo before the Hawks picked him up with that selection. 74 games, 50 goals, 64 of those games were with Hawthorn. Serviceable, but remembered for those of you who are, I suppose, old enough to remember the incident out at VFL Park where Byron Pickett, one of the toughest players in the competition at that time, gave Brendan Crummell one of the best shirt fronts you'd ever want to see. And it was actually the catalyst for the rule changes around the bump. Let's continue on with the not-so-notables. 1996, Daniel McAllister from Tasmania was selected with selection number 5 by Essendon. New Zealander, one of the first players of Maori heritage to play Grew up on rugby. He played 6 games. In fact, he had 2 stints at the Bombers, one in 1997, then again in 2001, but just only managed half a dozen games. 1998, Michael Stevens, the brother of North great Anthony, originally drafted to Port Adelaide, ended up playing 61 games for North Melbourne. 2000, Andrew McDougall, big key position player, drafted to the West Coast Eagles, kicked 50 goals from 43 games with both the West Coast Eagles, then the Western Bulldogs. He once kicked 4 goals in a half on Mal Michael in 2004, and there was big things expected of Andrew McDougall, but unfortunately he was a bit of a flop overall with that selection. 2007, a little bit unlucky. I used to describe him when he played as Merlin. That is Jared Grant. Ended up playing 95 games with the Western Bulldogs and the Gold Coast Suns. A sort of whippity half-forward flank. He was as skinny as a rake. Always, and it's not overly funny, but he's sort of remembered obviously for his unusual look, but also for getting stung by Stingray in his first season at the Western Bulldogs when he was first drafted. And that took place in a recovery session, I think at Kerford Road. 2011, Matt Bunting, a little bit unlucky with injury, drafted to the Giants, 67 games in 10 seasons. He was there a long time. Ended up becoming a Casey Premiership player this season, which was good for him. 2013, Cade Kolodjasny, the twin, okay, the Kolodjasny. He played in the Premiership at the Cats this year. Gold Coast Suns, he was from Tasmania, 80 games, most of those with the Gold Coast Suns, then traded to Melbourne where he only played 2 games and ended up retiring due to concussion issues. And I'm going to put Will Setterfield in the not-so-notables at this stage. I still think he's got a lot to prove, even at Essendon where he finds himself now. 57 games, 2016 drafted. Should maybe be in the newbies, but I don't know. I just think there's huge question marks on Setterfield. 3 clubs already. GWS first, then Carlton, now finds himself, I was going to say at Windy Hill, but it's now at Tullamarine. Let's go to the notables. We go right back to 1991. A player that I'd actually forgotten about, Jason Norrish from Claremont. Originally drafted by Melbourne, but really ended up in his home state of Fremantle. Played 148 games, mostly with the Dockers. He was targeted by Fremantle when they first came into the competition. Became a best and fairest winner with that club in 1998. Became the 3rd player to notch up 100 games for Fremantle. One of my favourites, the wonderfully weird Adam Huskus, 1993. He was drafted to the Sydney Swans with selection number 5. And he played exceptional football at 3 clubs, Sydney, then Port Adelaide, then Brisbane, 125 games overall. Part of the Swans losing 1996 grand final team, traded to Port Adelaide, All-Australian at that football club in 1997, traded to Brisbane where he was okay as well. Retired at the tender age of 24. He basically walked away from the game citing a lack of motivation. 1994, Joel Smith, another player that was cut down early in his career with an ACL, but recovered really well from Yarrawonga. Started off at the Saints, ended up at Hawthorn, played exceptional football for both clubs, 221 games, but mostly, you know, he was probably known for his time at Hawthorn where he played 163 of those games. Missed the Saints 1997 finals campaign because of that ACL. And then the big reason why he left St Kilda was a contractual dispute with the Saints. That's why he moved to Hawthorn. Did not play any football in 1998 because of that ACL, but became a star at Hawthorn. 2-time All-Australian, Hawks best and fairest winner. Retired in 2007, the year before the Hawks won that flag. So he missed out, I suppose, on that flag in 2008. 1997, Great player, Luke Power. Now at the Carlton Football Club in a development role. Brisbane Lions superstar, three-time premiership player, part of that midfield, that was so strong during that period of time. Brisbane co-captain between 2007 and 08. 302 games, 226 goals. Ended up, though, at the Giants in their early years. He was an All-Australian in 2004. He was a great player and a really, really strong team. 1998, Chris Naish, the Livewire small forward, who made his way from Wangaratta to the Richmond Football Club. He was really good there for the Tigers, as I mentioned, as a really, really smart, quick and exciting small forward. 161 games and 228 goals. For both Richmond and Port Adelaide. 143 of those games and 212 of those goals were with the Tigers. Played a game for Victoria and did not miss. This is how good he was and how durable he was in his time at Richmond. He did not miss a senior game at Richmond for 3 seasons. Let's have a look at 1999. Lee Brown, another favourite of mine. Gippsland boy. Drafted to Fremantle originally, where he showed a lot of talent. Wanted to, I suppose, come home, went to North Melbourne, where he continued to play good football, and then ended up at Collingwood. Overall, 246 games, 138 goals. The breakdown, 63 with the Dockers. He is an 100-game player at North Melbourne, where they ended up delisting him, and then 65 with the Pies. Premiership player with Collingwood in 2010, and he earned the title in that year, 2010, as the Mr. Fix-It, the Lee Brown role. 2001, Xavier Clark, X-Man, St Kilda, then Brisbane, 106 games overall, and plenty of soft tissue injuries, particularly in his hamstrings. He was very, very talented. 2002, Jared McVeigh from Sydney, the brother of Mark McVeigh. Long career. Very, very serviceable and quite talented. Could find the pill, particularly in the midfield. Did a wonderful job with Sydney over many years. 325 games. That's a lot of football. 201 goals. Premiership player in arguably one of the great grand finals in 2012, where I think the Swans, they upset Hawthorn in that game. Sydney captain between 2011 and 2016. 2-time best and fairest winner and All-Australian in 2013. 2003, Brock McLean, a little bit at times controversial, particularly with his strong thoughts regarding his first club, Melbourne, where he played some really good football. Melbourne, then Carlton, 157 games, didn't play 100 games at either club, and he was very vocal, particularly, as I said, about Melbourne when he came to Carlton in regards to their lack of culture. Their losing culture, and also the issue around tanking at the time. The irony of that, though, he probably came to a football club, my football club, Carlton, who were doing probably similar type things as well. But he was a handy type, a handy footballer, Brock McLean. Let's go now, and this is where it gets really interesting, because 2005, Scott Pendlebury, Collingwood, Gippsland boy. Was he Gippsland? I think he was Gippsland. Should have checked that up. Pretty sure he was Gippsland Power. Could he be the best ever Collingwood player, looking at his record? Amazing footballer. 358 games, 185 goals. Collingwood games record holder, premiership player, and Norm Smith medalist in 2010. Collingwood captain for 9 years, 6-time All-Australian, 5-time best and fairest winner of the Copeland Trophy. AFL Coaches Association champion player of the year in 2003. And I know these teams are the only 2 teams really that play that big Anzac Day game, but it just shows you what a big game player Scott Pendlebury is. He's won that Anzac Day medal 3 times. similar to what I suppose James Hird was able to do in his career at Essendon. They just stepped up on that big stage. Scotty Pendlebury. 2006, another superstar. Maybe not as good as Scott Pendlebury, but every bit as important for his football club. That is Travis Boak. Taken with selection number 5 in 2006. Been at the Port Adelaide club all that time. Had the Geelong Football Club chase him midway through his time at Port Adelaide, but he remained loyal. This is a boy from Torquay. And how many times has Geelong been able to lure players from their region back to the Cats? But Travis Boak said, no, I want to stay here and build this club. Unfortunately for him, he hasn't had the ultimate success in regards to premierships. But what a career it's been. 327 games, 197 goals and still going, like Scotty Pendlebury. Port Adelaide captain between 2013 and 2018. Port Adelaide Games record holder, 3-time All-Australian, 2-time Best and Fairest winner. And like Scotty Pendlebury, steps up on the big stage in the biggest game in South Australia on a yearly basis, the Showdown medal. He's won that medal 3 times. 2008, I suppose, ended tragically for Michael Hurley. First, the drugs saga at the Bombers, where he lost a year of football, suspended. And then when he finally got back, he was just cut down by a horrific injury. He came back and played that farewell game this year. But at his best, he was an exceptional footballer at both ends. More known for his work down back, he was able to kick 109 goals from 194 AFL games, so just 6 shy of 200. The 200 club really rated him 2 times All-Australian. Ben Cunnington, another. This is a really, really strong group of players. What a wonderful player Ben Cunnington has been. And like Sam Docherty, the challenges he's faced from a health point of view to be able to get back and play football this year is a credit to him. 229 games for North Melbourne. I don't like necessarily using the word underrated, but I think he is. He's a very, very smart and talented footballer, Ben Cunnington. 2 times Best and Fairest winner. 2010, the Enigma, Jared Polak. Excellent at Port Adelaide in the middle of his time between Brisbane and then North Melbourne. 147 games, huge contract at the Kangaroos, where he never lived up to the expectations and the form, I suppose, he showed at Port Adelaide, and it's just been delisted. I think he may have even still had a year to run on his contract, but he's still in the notables. Jake Stringer, rate him, excitement machine, can turn it on his day, pure match winner. Western Bulldogs, played really good football there, premiership player in 2016, and All-Australian, I think it was, in his second year of AFL football. 172 games for the Dogs and Essendon, where he's kicked 304 goals. It's been good with the Bombers. He's been good with the Bombers, 6-time leading goal kicker with both clubs, and All-Australian, as I mentioned. 2014, you go from Jared Stringer to Jordan De Goey. 2 sometimes controversial players off field. De Goey been in a bit of strife, but can he play? 137 games and 173 goals for the Collingwood Football Club. It's going to be fascinating to see how and he signed a long-term deal at Collingwood. It's going to be fascinating to see what the next part of his career looks like. 2015, Darcy Parish, ball magnet, Winchelsea boy, Geelong Falcons, ended up at the Bombers with selection number 5. All-Australian in 2021, had a great year and won the Anzac Day medal in that year with a day out against Collingwood. He just had the ball on the string. 2017, notable, even though he could be in the newbies, we've nearly played 100 games. That's Adam Cerra. Wouldn't say he's flying, but he's a class act, both with Fremantle and now with Carlton. Made a pretty smooth transition to the Blues, had some injuries, didn't set the world on fire, but you can see that he's going to be a very good player for a very long time. And the other one who's exploding right now, and that is Connor Rozee. You would like to put the 2018 player into the newbies category, but He's already made All-Australian, which was this year in 2022, and he won a showdown medal. He's had 81 games, he kicked 77 goals, and he's made that transition into the midfield. And he bloody looks the goods. Newbies, a couple of Swannies, 2019, Dylan Stevens, then 2020, Braden Campbell. 30 games for Stevens and 25 to Braden Campbell. Both boys played in the Swans losing grand final against the Cats. Campbell started as the medical sub and came on when Reid went off the ground. In 2021, Mac Andrew, the Sudanese lad, he found his way to the Gold Coast Suns and played a couple of games this year. So drum roll. Best ever pick number 5 in history of the VFL/AFL draft. Don't think we can argue with this one. 2004, Lance Buddy Franklin. Spent time now at 2 clubs, drafted to Hawthorn with that selection number 5. Controversially went to the Suns when we thought he'd go to the Giants, and what a career it's been. 341 games and 1,047 goals. 2 times premiership player, 8-time All-Australian, 4-time Coleman medalist, best and fairest winner at the Hawks in 2008. 2 times goal of the year and 3 times Brett Kirk medalist. It's some sort of career. And after kicking that goal, only 1 goal in round 1 of 2022, he booted those 4 goals. And what a moment that was in Sydney's win against the Cats in round 2, becoming just the 6th player in VFL/AFL history to kick 1,000 career goals in the process. And he's in pretty bloody good company. Tony Lockett, Gordon Coventry, Jason Dunstall, Doug Wade, and Gary Ablett Sr. There it is, the best ever Lance Buddy Franklin. Let's have a look. Guys, at the order now. So we've got Dangerfield 10, Pike 9, Bartel 8, Selwood 7, McRae 6, and Franklin 5. So I'm going to tip that, rework it. Am I wrong? Pike 10, Cray 9, Bartel 8, Dangerfield 7, Franklin 6, Selwood 5. Tell me what you think. Speak soon.